very much, everyone. I suppose recently we've seen an increasing number of cybersecurity attacks and ransomware attacks, starting earlier this year from the SolarWinds attack and the Colonial Pipeline attack. But I think oftentimes in Ireland, there's a perception that maybe we're too small to be a target for these major cybersecurity incidents. But this has really come home to roost, I think, for the Irish people and the Irish government over the past month with the impact of the HSE ransomware attack on our healthcare sector. And this just brings home the message that no country or organisation is immune from cyber criminals. And security is one of the main concerns for Europe's governments, for organisations and citizens across Europe as well. And therefore, it is among the top priorities for the European Commission's Research and Development Programme, Horizon Europe. This is our second workshop on cybersecurity opportunities in Europe to support Cyber Ireland members to engage in European funding calls. Last September, we ran one on the Connecting Europe facility on cybersecurity deployment and capability building. And there were two actually successful Irish applications under that call. One was from the Central Bank on a cyber information intelligence sharing sharing initiative. And then the other one was from Dublin City University on a European Digital Media Observatory on disinformation. So the aim of today's workshop is to raise awareness of European research and development opportunities in cybersecurity and security for Cyber Ireland members, but in particular small and medium enterprises, and also to explore the value of participating in European projects. What we'd like to do then is to be actually able to identify some companies that may be interested in participating in Horizon Europe and look at how we can support them in understanding the European R&D landscape, looking at the calls that are out there, identifying suitable ones, maybe identifying suitable partners, but also discussing, I suppose, maybe some of the challenges and the issues around participating in European projects as well. So why are we focusing on small and medium enterprises? And it's because SMEs are the backbone of both the Irish economy and the European economy, and they have an important role to play in solving Europe's cybersecurity challenges through research and innovation, through the innovative products and services that they've developed. But I think engaging in European projects can be a challenge for SMEs who may not have the same resources as large companies and multinationals, from trying to identify suitable funding calls to joining a consortium. So what we're going to do today is try to provide some practical advice to attendees to try to help you consider whether opportunities in Horizon Europe is suitable for your organisation. But we also want to look at maybe some of the challenges and the pitfalls and what to look out for as well. So to do this, we have a really fantastic lineup today of speakers who are European R&D experts. They've been involved in European R&D framework programs for a number of years before Horizon Europe. And to kick things off, we have a European Commission Policy Officer. We're then going to move on to the Irish National Contact Point for Civil Security for Society pillar. We have a Horizon 2020 Project Co-Ordinator, and then we have an Irish SME participating in a Horizon 2020 project as well to give that SME perspective. So I'd like to note that we have a policy for all of our Cyber Ireland events that we do try to encourage gender diversity on our panels. And you might recognise today that we, I suppose, have our speakers are all men, but unfortunately, the host for today's webinar, Cheryl Baker, wasn't able to make it. And we also had another woman on the panel, but she had to pull out. So just to take note of that. After the presentations, we're going to have 30 minutes for questions and answers. So if you do have any questions, you can keep them to the end and ask our panelists then. So to kick things off, we have our first presenter, who is David Rios-Morenten. He is the Policy and Project Officer at the European Commission for DG Home, which is their Director General for Migration and Home Affairs. David's role is to manage the European security policies and capabilities through research and development. He also manages the SSRI area of the Community of European Research and Innovation for Security. David is going to provide us an overview of the European Commission R&D landscape, for security, and also highlight the important roles of SMEs in European R&D funding as well. So David, I'll hand it over to you to present now.
Thank you, Owen, and thanks to Cyber Ireland for having me today. It's a pleasure to give you this presentation. Let me just first share my screen, and I hope it works fine. Just let me know. Do you see the
yeah, that's
slides?
Working there now, David.
Good. Okay, so I will start. I know that we are under a strict timekeeping policy, so I will go straight to the point. With this presentation, as Owen said, I will try to talk about the new EU-funded framework program for research and innovation, concretely in the domain of security, and about the opportunities that it might bring to you, to SMEs. Let me start by saying that this is a very special year because it's the beginning of a new framework program and the first year of a 7 years period on which we have very high expectations at the Commission. I hope that many of you will join us and contribute to the generation of knowledge and value to address the security challenges faced by the European Union. And I also hope that this presentation stimulates you to do so. So a bit of background first for those who are not familiar with the program. This is a program that is not new, of course. We have 17 years of history since the preparatory action on security research back in 2004 until today. This program was conceived at the very beginning with the main mission of fostering technological development and strengthening the industrial capacity of the EU in the domain of civil security following the events of the September 11. But throughout all these years, it has evolved to a more mature program where we still keep this original aim and these values, but it's now more focused on contributing with knowledge and innovative technologies to fight against security threats and to protect our citizens. So evolution makes perfect sense if we think about the policy context under which that preparatory action back in 2004 was conceived and the policy context that we have today. I think it's good just to briefly present this context for you to better understand what's coming up during the next 7 years, but I don't want to bore you with policy details, just three main bullet points. The new policy context of the EU that has shaped this program, the security research program, has three main drivers. First, the priorities of the Commission, the overall priorities of the Commission with 6 headline ambitions, all of which stress, on one hand, the role of innovative technologies, notably in the digital domain, and on the other hand, the importance of ensuring the protection of EU citizens. These two elements, protection of citizens and innovation, have trickled down in a way to a new generation of security policies, which is the second policy driver for our program, actually. These security policies, with the Security Union strategy as the central piece, have set as a strategic priority to develop a strong European security ecosystem and have identified EU research and innovation and technology development for security as a key enabler for that priority. The third policy driver of our program is the recently adopted, well, it was adopted in 2020, but has been updated this year, EU Industrial Strategy, which has created a general framework to boost private and public investment for strengthening the competitiveness of the EU industry, including and with special emphasis on SMEs. And this general industrial framework provides an excellent ground for us, the security stakeholders, to foster a strong and competitive security industry, which can safeguard the security of supply of those technologies which are critical and most needed to protect our citizens. And of course, when we talk about a strong and competitive security industry, we also mean strong and competitive SMEs and startups. So why do we care about having SMEs and startups in our work program? I think that with the policy context that I have described, the first 2 points that justify this interest are clear. The first one is that the EU must master the technologies that are crucial for our security. I guess we have a point of agreement in this. And the second one, that we need a specialized, strong and competitive EU security industry. I guess we also agree on this. These 2 points are hardwired in our policy, as I said. But let's go to the third point. which is related with the fact that small and medium and sized businesses account for over 99% of all European firms. So if we speak about industry, there is no way we can forget about them. Europe's 25 million small and medium enterprise are the backbone of the EU economy, as Owen said. SMEs can bring innovation to societal challenges, including the security of citizens. And on top of this, SMEs help spread innovation throughout the European regions. You are therefore essential to Europe's competitiveness and prosperity, to our economy and technological sovereignty, and also to our resilience to external shocks. The next point is that SMEs are really diverse in terms of business models, sizes, profiles. They range from liberal professions to middle-range industrial companies, from traditional crafts to high-tech startups. And here's our focus group: innovative SMEs and high-tech startups that can transform and modernize the EU security capabilities. Finally, just to say that we are aware that sometimes SMEs and startups need a bit of help to bring their innovation, their products, their solutions to the market. So we want SMEs to work in a favorable environment to develop innovative security solutions and also to grow stronger and more competitive. And this is what we aim with our program, and this is why we invite you to participate. This is the shape, the structure of the Horizon Europe program that starts this year. I will not talk a lot about it because I'm afraid that Michael will give you more details about this in his intervention, which I say that the security part of the EU-funded security research, the security part of the EU-funded research and innovation work program is right there in the middle. Pillar 2, global challenges and European industrial competitiveness, and cluster 3, civil security for society. Just some figures to talk about the budget of the program. So after quite a long negotiation process that started with the first Commission proposal back in 2018, we have reached the budget figures that you can see in the slide. 1.6 billion euros for the next 7 years are dedicated to security research, which represents 1.67% of the overall program budget. Just a remark on this, to say that the level of investment in security research has been maintained with respect to the previous framework program, Horizon 2020, even if the security budget in H 2020 represented the 2.2% of the overall budget. This means that all the areas of the programs have grown more than security. But this is not a surprise, because the program is steered by the policy priorities of the moment, and foreseen for the future, of course, which at the same time represent or reflect the main concerns of Europeans. And what are those concerns? Of course, matters related with security are always there, but we have seen a decreasing tendency since approximately the year 2017, a decreasing tendency that can mean many things, of course, but that correlates rather well with the lower number of major security incidents that cause a bigger social and mediatic impact, such as terrorist attacks in EU cities, like those we lived in between 2015 and 17 in Brussels, Barcelona, London, Paris, Berlin, etc. So, as I said, the Eurobarometer told us that the concerns of Europeans were not so much on security, and this we saw it already in 2019. But then last year, we know what happened last year, and as you can imagine, our concerns about security issues have, if not vanished, at least decreased even more. What keeps us all awake at night today is more related with our health, with our economy, and the budget of Horizon Europe reflects the situation, of course. Speaking about security, I cannot avoid making just one positive reading of all these considerations related with the Horizon Europe budget. My personal reading, of course, and is that if we are less worried about security threats, maybe it's because the effort of all security stakeholders is paying back. Stakeholders in the policy domain and European security authorities, but also industries and researchers who develop innovative security technologies. All of them have contributed to a safer Europe, and this effort, of course, needs to continue. So we are advocate for sustaining the investment in security research and innovation, but we are also eager to harvest the fruit of this investment. We want results, we want tangible results, and you as SMEs can help. This is a bit the structure of our security work program, with 6 destinations, 6 areas that we call destinations, managed by 2 Directorate Generals of the Commission, DG Connect, which is responsible for the cybersecurity part of the work program. DG Home is responsible for the areas of fighting crime and terrorism, border management, resilience of infrastructure, and disaster resilience societies. The resilience of infrastructure is shared actually by DG Home and DG Connect. So as soon as our work program is out, and it will be out very soon, you will be able to see that there are many opportunities for you in there, because the relevance of digital technologies is significant in the work program. So I guess that many of the research topics that you will find there will be of some interest for you. I don't need to stress the potential interest in the cybersecurity destination. I think it's self-evident, but I would like to stress the opportunities in the other areas also, because I represent DG Home and this is our part. But you can think about, for example, the need for digital tools for law enforcement in the fight against cybercrime, or innovative digital solutions for travel facilitation in the area of border management, or protection of critical infrastructure against combined physical and cyber attacks, infrastructure like transport, energy, also financial, health infrastructure, urban infrastructure, postal infrastructure, e-commerce, and more. As I said, the development of digital technologies and cybersecurity solutions will be all over the work program. And this is because a significant part of the activities of EU security authorities have gone digital. In many cases, as a consequence of new threats that are also digitally enabled. When you read the work program, if you don't see a reference to concrete technologies, don't assume that the topic is not for you. You need to think that if the technologies that you develop could be useful to address the challenges described in the topic, then you are more than welcome to contribute, because the majority of the cases we express our research needs on the basis of threats or capability needs, and we try not to be very prescriptive with the technologies that are to be used, except maybe in concrete cases when the technology in itself is a threat or is a channel for the propagation of a threat, or because there is a push at commission level, at framework program level for the development of some strategic technologies. That could happen, for example, sometimes with Galileo and Copernicus for Earth observation, but also digital has a strong push due to the digital transition that it's also encouraged by the Commission. Or in another case could be that the digital solution is maybe the most evident, and then we flag it or we stress it, but normally we do not prescribe technology. So feel free to propose, to be creative, and to just read through the topics and find yourself a comfortable position, let's say. I will not go through all the facts and figures. I just want to highlight that SMEs are to date bringing significant innovation capacity to the EU-funded research and innovation projects, and will continue to do so. They will continue to do so during Horizon Europe. Just to flag 3 numbers here, and here, to say that well, maybe there is a perception that that the SMEs represent a smaller community than what they actually do, but the reality is that the budget share of SMEs in comparison with the overall budget is above the 20% target established for H2020 as a whole. We are slightly above 20.66%. And this budget share, it's even a bit higher than in the other societal challenges, so we are happy about that. Also about the success rate, you can see in the second figure on the top right, it's higher than in other framework program instruments, sometimes instruments that were designed specifically for SMEs, like the SME instrument. In our case, we have an overall success rate of 11.93%, which is 10.82% for SMEs, which is again not bad. And well, I show this data because I think that the participation of the SMEs and the work they carried out deserves more visibility, even more in the future Horizon Europe program. I think that SMEs will be it's not that I think, I'm convinced. I'm sure that SMEs will be very much welcomed in security research and innovation, despite the strong push of the new instrument, for example, the European Innovation Council. The value that the EU can bring is significant, but I also think that being part of the security research and innovation ecosystem created by our work program can also be very beneficial for you, for SMEs. So look, 1 month ago, we held a workshop for dedicated to SMEs in security research. And in that workshop, we asked our participants, there were a lot of SMEs there, we asked what were the main obstacles that they faced to reach the market with their innovation. In general, not for security SMEs, but in general for SMEs, we talked about obstacles for finding or approaching customers, competition and difficulties to establish industrial alliances, management of intellectual property, cost of production and labor, access to finance, availability of skilled staff, regulatory barriers, red tape in public contracts, and access to information on tender opportunities and rules. Well, then we asked the SMEs which of these 10 generic obstacles could apply to any SME in whatever market, which of these are particularly more critical in the case of security. And they underlined first, red tape in public contracts, 2, finding or approaching customers, 3, access to finance, 4, competition and alliances, and 5, management of intellectual property. The third question we asked...
David, just to let you know, you've about a minute.
Okay.
Left.
I will finish very quickly then. So we asked if participating in our projects could help them in address these obstacles, and the answer was yes. So beyond the financial contribution that you can get participating in our program, there are also other opportunities in getting more visibility, internationally accessing potential customers, and also creating a market for your future products in collaboration with all the companies, etc. So again, I will not go more into the details of the habits of a successful SME in our work program. Of course, it's not easy to succeed, but there are many SMEs which are succeeding. I just invite you to take the opportunities that will be available very soon, both in our work program for security in Cluster 3 of Pillar 2, but also in the Pillar 3 under the European Innovation Council. There are 2 different instruments, complementary but not mutually exclusive. Get all the help you can find, and there are some instruments made available for the Commission, like the Business Acceleration Services, Results Booster, and the IP Help Desk. And of course, get in contact with your national contact points, who will be happy to help you. And good luck. This is all on my side. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, David. That was very useful to give an insight into the European Commission's ideas around the policy perspective of this, which sometimes we may forget. And you've just provided a good segue into our next speaker, who is Michael Murphy, Horizon Europe Irish National Contact Point for Civil Security for Society Pillar. Now, Michael is the guy you need to talk to if you need any information about Horizon Europe upcoming calls or the inner workings of the European R&D program, because he has been supporting organizations apply for European projects for many years now. So Michael's going to go through the relevant funding calls in Horizon Europe for security, and also provide some advice on identifying and participating in these calls as well. Over to you, Michael.
Can you see the screen okay, Owen?
No, it's not coming up yet.
Okay, that's strange. Let's try again. Share screen.
It's just, yeah, there you go, Michael.
Okay, and can you see the full screen?
We can, yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, I'll start off cybersecurity and civil security for society. I'm going to go a little fast because when I rehearsed this it took 20 minutes. So now I understand I better get it down to 15. Yeah, You can see a summary of the contents, the way I've structured it. The big thing I think with Horizon Europe is where to start. Because it's just such a big program. And yeah, we're focusing in on the Civil Security for Society work program. And as you can see on the right-hand side here, there is a draft available already online. So you should download that draft and use it as a guide. What the work programs do is they contain the overarching aims and give the menu of topics that the Commission will fund, as well as specifying various rules. And you can download the draft work program here. And again, as I said, use it to inform your thinking for your proposals. Just to mention that these are collaborative proposals within this work program in general. So you're talking about consortia working together to prepare their proposals. And lastly, just to say the Commission, I expect, maybe it'll be sooner, but on the 30th of June 2021, it will publish the definitive work program. And you want to use that rather than the draft, because there could be minor changes, but that could have an influence on the way you present your proposal. So very important to download the proper version. And talking about downloading the proper version of the work program, we have the Funding and Tenders portal. And I've given a link to this below, so you'll be able to look at this yourself later on. You'll receive the slides. I've filtered according to Horizon Europe. Otherwise, we'd look across all EU programs, and it defaults to the programming period 2021 to 2027 here. And down here, you can see a few work programs are already published, but the main ones in Pillar 2 are not yet published. And as David pointed out earlier, Civil Security for Societies is one of the Pillar 2 areas. So it's not yet published, but it should be published at the end of the month. And you can go in here and download it. Just to say, you can search across all EC programs as well, not just Horizon Europe on this website. You can also look up old projects and results. So that's useful for gathering intelligence about who's playing in a particular area. And lastly, as a quick recommendation, work as an expert for the Commission, an expert evaluator. That is by far the best way to learn a ton about how the process works. So moving on then to the Civil Security for Society work program. David has already presented the 6 destinations, the 6 key areas, if you like. And I just want to focus in on 2 of those. Increase cybersecurity and better protect the EU and its citizens against crime and terrorism. And just to say that, yeah, that there are, as David pointed out, there can be opportunities in other parts of this program and other programs entirely. But again, just for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to focus on cybersecurity first and fight against crime and terror second. So first of all, I wanted to give you an example of what a topic looked like. I showed you the document, the draft document for Civil Security for Society, and that's got 214 pages in it. It's a huge document, and it's filled with topics that the Commission is open to funding. And I want to show you here not the detail of this topic, but just to give you a sense of the structure of the topics. So you can see you have a topic title here, which always begins Horizon Cluster 3, 20, and so on like that. That's the nomenclature the Commission uses. And then this one is about AI for cybersecurity reinforcement. Now, the next thing to note is this specific conditions box here. Whoops, sorry, I'll just go back on that one. This specific conditions box here. And you can see that the first thing it tends to highlight are the Commission contribution per project, per proposal. And then the indicative budget here, it's 11 million. So in this case, it'll fund maybe 3 proposals with this budget. The type of action is a research and innovation action, which means it's a bit further from the market, and you get 100% funding plus a 25% flat rate. There's more eligibility conditions here, which I won't get into. And then they mentioned the technology readiness level, which is 4. So it's quite a low technology readiness level, and quite in line with the research and innovation action. Then the next section you'll see, and this is true not only of the security program, but across all the programs, you'll see all the programs in Pillar 2. You'll see an expected outcome, and this is quite neatly bullet pointed here. And then finally, there's a scope section, which puts a context on the topic, and also references various EC documents, AI white papers, EU security strategy, data strategy that you might need to refer to in preparing your proposal. Also, there's a mention here at the end of this one that participation of SMEs is encouraged. So that's just to give you an example topic, a structure of the topic, without getting into the specific details about the topic itself. So let's move on to cybersecurity and cybercrime in cluster 3. And there's an overarching expected impact, which I'm not going to read out. Just I would say that more emphasized lately is technological sovereignty, which wasn't quite so much the case in the past. But that's the only thing really to highlight. Moving on then, I'm not going to bother with these headlines, which are really not so relevant, because what you're interested in is the particular topics, which, as I said, always begin with this Horizon Cluster 3 2021 CS for cybersecurity. It's a one-step proposal, and this is number 1 of the 4 topics that will be funded in 2021. And so you can see dynamic business continuity and recovery methodologies based on models and prediction for multi-level cybersecurity, improved security and open source and open specification hardware for connected devices. Sorry, I have an itchy trigger finger. AI for cybersecurity reinforcement, which I showed you a moment ago, and then scalable privacy-preserving technologies for cross-border federated computation in Europe involving personal data. Then if we look at the conditions for the 2021 call for those topics, we see the topics are listed here just by their nomenclature. They're all research and innovation actions, the budgets, and most critically on the right-hand side, the number of projects expected to be funded by the Commission. And what I like about this is that you have up to 5 projects, say, to take the first line, you've up to 5 projects that the Commission will fund. So you don't need to be first or second, you can be 5th and still get funded. So I kind of like that, that proposition. Moving along to 2022, it's a similar kind of deal. I'm not going to read out all the topics. You can just see them all there and read them for yourselves. And these are the topics that the Commission will fund in 2022. And you can see the opening. I should have mentioned in the previous slide that the opening and the call opening and deadlines. But here you see you've got your 4 topics. You've got innovation actions and research and innovation actions. So I've said about research and innovation actions, but innovation actions are a lot closer to the market, and you only get funded if your industry at 70% plus 25% flat rate overhead. So I guess the idea is that you should have some skin in the game if it's that close to market. And then you can see the EC contributions listed here, and then the number of projects to be funded. And again, a few projects to be funded under each topic, which I think is quite attractive. Finally, I want to just jump back to Destination 1 to do with better protect the EU and its citizens against crime and terrorism. And I particularly want to focus on subsection FCT 06, citizens are protected against cybercrime. And you can see that there are 2 topics on this. One is to do with child sexual exploitation, and the other is to do with online identity theft. And these are reckoned to be funded at €3 million each. And yeah, you should, but only one project is likely to be funded, one proposal is likely to be funded, so the budgets are less. Just to mention that in DG Home calls, there are often specific conditions which you have to pay attention to or you won't even be evaluated. So this could be, for instance, that 2 police authorities and 2 civil society organizations have to be involved in the child sexual exploitation topic, or in relation to the online identity theft topic, 3 police authorities must be involved from 3 different EU member states and associated countries. So it does help a little bit if you've got good working relationships already with the police forces. Also, I would see those as minimum numbers, because for various reasons, for instance, one might drop out by accident, then you need to have some insurance. You need more than just the bare minimum, just in case an accident happens. Also, it's kind of seen as good, I think, by the evaluators that if there are more police forces involved, then that's seen as a good, kind of a good thing. Moving on finally then to the participation evaluation section, evaluation bit. And let's supposing you like, let's say the topic I presented there, you like that particular topic. So you've identified a topic and you want to participate. Well, how will you do that? Well, first of all, you have to ask yourself, will you write your own proposal? This is a big deal and it shouldn't be undertaken lightly. You should start, a rule of thumb is 6 months in advance. Many people start a year or more in advance. And if you're experienced, then if you're not experienced, then you need experienced partners willing to assist you. It'll be a difficult journey without that kind of informed insight. Then, and this is something I encountered quite a bit in my own travels, can you prompt someone to coordinate with you, offering strong support? So you might be an SME, you might say, look, I can't lead one of these projects, but you might know an academic in a university who think you would be absolutely capable to do so. So you may be able to approach a big brother. finally, you just say, look, I don't know where I could participate. How do I go about identifying a consortium that might accept me? And in this case, there's no easy answer, but you could tap your existing networks, consult your national contact point, that's me in this case, subscribe to relevant circulation lists, including my own one, attend brokerage events, and register on brokerage websites. For me, the last doesn't work terribly well, but some of my colleagues have different experiences, so I leave it to you. Finally, I just want to say about the evaluation process, and I'm going to play a video. Owen, do I have 2.5 minutes? I think I do. So I'm going to just play this. I could explain the evaluation process myself, but I think this video summarizes it up really well, and the link is below in case you want to check it yourself. So just to summarize, as a starting point, you need the work programs, and you also need to familiarize yourselves with the funding and tenders portal, which amongst other things allows you to find the work programs, and also to do keyword searches and to see what programs have been funded before and so forth. Then also, before you embark on a proposal, and I haven't emphasized this much, it helps, especially if you coordinate, you should gauge your chances of winning. If it's likely that a topic is going to get 40 or 50 proposals and the Commission only has a budget for one, well then you really have to think, do you want to do that? Consult me, your national contact point in the context of security anyhow, and use your existing networks, attend and present at brokerage events, sign up to relevant circulation lists, attend training events. I think the cybersecurity topics are attractive because the EC funds multiple proposals under each topic. That said, they will receive a lot of proposals, so it will be competitive. Then there's the cybercrime topics under the fight against crime and terrorism. And yeah, likely the Commission will only fund one proposal each, and applicants need also to attract police authorities and others to their proposal and find a meaningful role for them. And finally, just to say that David kind of mentioned this in the context of the Civil Security for Society program, that there are opportunities, cyber opportunities in maybe unlikely places or places that you don't think to look at first. And that's the reason why you should do a keyword search across the funding and tenders portal. But also think of areas like, for instance, health, where digitalization is increasingly being emphasized, and cybersecurity along with it. Also, industrial technologies, again, that's another area with a lot of manufacturing data going digital. You want to make sure that data isn't stolen. So again, cybersecurity could be important in other areas, not just civil security for society. And finally, just to mention, under the European Defence Fund as well, there will certainly be cybersecurity opportunities. So there's no information available on that yet, but when it becomes available, it's something to look at. So that's really all I want to say. Thank you very much.
That's fantastic, Michael. Thanks very much for that overview. You know, I think it just highlights that the European R&D funding landscape can be as clear as mud. You know, when you're looking at a 214-page work program document and maybe you're not familiar with the terminology and the language that Michael's gone through there, that it does take time to get up to speed in this area. But as Michael said, you know, you need to start early. Think 6-12 months in advance, and even if you don't identify maybe a call in this funding period, it could be in 2022 or in 2023 or afterwards. But I think it's important to start now in getting engaged in looking at the various different funding calls and what might be suitable to your organization. So we're going to move on next to a Horizon 2020 project. Second here now. So we have Ray Janot, who's the program manager of the UCD Centre for Cybersecurity and Cybercrime Investigation. CCI are the project coordinators for the H2020 European R&D project called INSPECTr. INSPECTr is going to develop a shared intelligent platform for gathering, analysing, prioritising and presenting key data to help in the prediction, detection and management of crime in support of multiple agencies, including law enforcement. And this is being done at a local, national and international level. So Ray is going to provide advice on how to successfully apply for EU projects from the perspective of a coordinator, from building your idea to conducting your research and managing your commitments as well. So Ray, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Owen, and thanks for the introduction. I hope you can see my screen and my video.
We can.
Appropriately. A few hiccups this morning or this afternoon. So yeah, as Owen introduced me, I want to just tell you a little bit about some of my perspectives from applying for funding from the European Commission and some from indeed high-level guidance and how to do that. I will be using one of our current Horizon 2020 projects as a little bit of an example to give you a kind of a feel for what you need to do. So there will be a lot of overlapping information here. So Michael, I wish I had found your video before I started this, but I've kind of summarized that again. But so yeah, let's move on. So first advice, and I think as Michael alluded to, you can start preparing now really for Horizon Europe. But even before that, looking at that draft that's online, start with an idea. If you have an idea now, start working with it now and start thinking about how you would make that into a large-scale project, even if it's the smallest idea. If you've got a grand idea and you want to set up a consortium and get everyone to roll in behind that idea, good. But if you've even just got a small piece of a larger puzzle, it's good to get down on paper what that idea is, but essentially don't wait for a project call to decide to do something. Proposal writing and consortium building takes a lot of time. Getting all the partners in, getting them to agree on things, getting them to agree on a direction, on getting them to agree on a work plan, writing up the work plan is hugely taxing. We started with an idea, and when we were putting together the proposal, I think coming up to the submission deadline, I think we were doing shift work, myself and Cheryl, who wanted to join us today, as Owen said, and other leading partners in the consortium. One would get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, work till 5 or 6. Someone else would take up the mantle and start preparing the proposal. And that's the way we worked. And we had an idea. So if you're trying to formulate an idea around the call, you're probably doing it wrong, and it's probably going to take a long time. So you can do preparatory work done, even if you don't have the big picture. If you've got your small idea, I'll give you an example of a small idea that we had. One of our other projects is called FreeTool, and we've been running this since I think 2012-13 with repeated funding from DG Home, as David mentioned, under ISF funding, so not Horizon funding, slightly smaller scale projects, but this was initially a 2-year project where we get law enforcement to take their skills, their programming skills, and develop tools that will be given back to the law enforcement community. Now, we've been successful with that, and we're on our 3rd iteration of that project, and indeed we're branching into a sort of a larger project with that. But there was a lot of shortcomings in the project, so we wanted to do things with the tools, like make them a single interface with all the tools, start building them into a toolbox rather than having them standalone applications. We wanted to deploy them easily. We wanted to add analytics around them and reporting, and all of these were through discussions with stakeholders, with law enforcement communities. So how do we take that idea and make it bigger? And we couldn't really do that with ISF funding or indeed the team that we had. We didn't have the expertise, so we wanted to get a larger team around behind us with kind of more funding and a longer term goal. So, and it's quite unusual. In some cases, you have Horizon funded projects which turn in through sustainability programs. Parts of it go into ISF funded projects. So we're quite the opposite. We took an ISF funded project and went into Horizon 2020 with it. So it's a bit of an unusual step to take, but we needed much more. This wasn't sufficient, this idea. So another thing you can do, and you should do in preparation, is do some prior research. So for example, engage with your stakeholders. If you've got a product that you think will be viable, or an idea that could be turned into a viable product, engage with your stakeholders, see how viable it is, see what's the market observation, what are people willing to pay for it. It's always a good idea. How are you going to make a profit from it if you're a small business? But also, is there a need for it? Is there competition out there that you need to kind of have a unique selling point on your product that can be included in the project that will differentiate it from other products on the market? So that kind of innovation is important to have on your proposals. It's also very useful, and it was mentioned a few times today, to research the European priorities. So what is the European Commission looking for in terms of what you address? And I think we mentioned child sexual abuse material and the investigation and deterrent of it as being a priority, and it has been for a long time for the European Commission. But there are many others in cybersecurity and other fields. And then while you're doing your prior research, try to identify important players in the market. So, and again, potential consortium partners, potential coordinators, as Michael said. You may feel that you're not big enough to coordinate a project, and probably if you're a small business, you're probably not. You don't have the staff and resources to dedicate to it, or possibly the experience to dedicate to it. So it's useful to kind of gather this research before the call. In terms of our research, we have long-standing relationships with law enforcement through the work we do in the UCD Centre for Cybersecurity and Cybercrime Investigation, obviously. So we've been doing training and tool development and consultancy and expert witness testimony and so on for law enforcement agencies for many years. So we were able to ascertain a number of issues that they were seeing, such as the backlogs, particularly in relation to child sexual abuse investigations. It would surprise you to know the percentage of investigations in Ireland that are focused on just that, and therefore they're experiencing huge backlogs. So that's something that you can ascertain from talking to your stakeholders or watching the markets. Even though we were distributing free tools to law enforcement, we still saw that despite budgetary restraints on law enforcement agencies, there was still a reliance on commercial tools because they're accepted in court and people feel safe using them. But there are many deficiencies in them, and that's something that we wanted to address. But we're not going to change people's mindset overnight, so we have to accommodate these commercial tools. So things like that, obstacles to collaboration, obstacles to evidence exchange between law enforcement agencies, all of these issues were prevalent, and these are things we started thinking about before the call came out. As I said, the repeating EU priorities since 2011, there's been some directive or another in combating crimes against children. There was one in terrorism in 2017. There's been various EU cybersecurity strategies over the years. So whenever we were applying, there was one on drastically reducing cybercrime. I think maybe last year, it got defined as building operational capacity to prevent, deter, and respond cyber criminals. So all of these can be referred to in your proposals, and it's useful information to have. So we took that we could improve our idea in that we would have to start working with a common data format if we wanted to exchange data and do analytics on it. We wanted to provide an affordable pathway for those who couldn't afford commercial tools. We wanted to add in a little bit of more advanced police processes such as crime detection, crime prediction, and things like that. Artificial intelligence and machine learning tools for easing the workload of investigators, so for media processing and things like that. So having, for example, NLP tools doing the work of the investigator through text documents, emails, and so on, having computer vision tools, search for an object in 500,000 images. So really these are assistive tools to investigators. And then one of the big things about our idea was the remote correlation of evidence. So having a piece of evidence in one jurisdiction and confirming that there is a link to a case in another jurisdiction, and then indeed being able to transfer evidence, whether it's a data request from one law enforcement agency to another, or two law enforcement agencies in different jurisdictions working on the same case, so a joint investigation team. So now we're starting to look at kind of blue sky kind of thinking, something bigger, something that's more horizon 2020 level standard, so a large scale project. And we started identifying as well the expertise that we need. So we need law enforcement agencies, lots of them. One thing we want to do is have the end users adopt the tools, adopt the platform. Obviously, we need digital forensics and intelligence gathering, but data storage and analysis, security, legal, ethical, particularly if you're starting to do things online or with personal data, we need huge ethical oversight. And obviously the machine learning and artificial intelligence expertise as well. And indeed, training development as well, so we can improve our impact. So that brings me to kind of preparing for a successful proposal. A few tips, and again, I'm reiterating stuff that has been said already on this call. Very importantly, answer the funding call's objectives. So read it carefully. Read it like an exam question. That's what I always say. You are marked, as Michael said, and you achieve a score, but how many of those items that are mentioned in the call are you actually hitting, are you actually meeting and including in your project? So try and ensure, even if you're a small cog in a big consortium, read through the call's objectives, because you will put effort into a consortium. The effort that you put in will be futile if the proposal isn't successful. So make sure that your coordinator is answering the funding call's objectives as well. Review your research that I just talked about and identify any gaps that you may have. Engage with your national contact point. I think you've heard that already today. So we would have talked quite a bit to Michael whenever we started getting our proposal together and asking him if he thought it was a good idea or if we were meeting the priorities in Europe. But also as I'll talk about in a minute, we also were looking for partners on certain aspects of our thinking. So when we reviewed our research, we did identify gaps, and Michael helped us with that. And I've got different headings to your video, Michael, but emphasize innovation, exploitation, ethics, and dissemination. These are all important. So we talked about the implementation. They're the work packages, and I'll show you an example of one of those in a moment. But how are you going to exploit it? How are you going to differentiate your product from other products? How are you going to expand the capabilities of products through your research, that type of thing?
Sorry, Ray, just to let you know, you've a minute left.
Sorry, I should have practiced this. Okay, so let me give you an example of the call here. This is the call we answered. So again, like I say, answer it like an exam question, go through it with a highlighter and pick out the key points. Criminal and terrorist behavior, rapid and near real-time forensics, the cross-border nature of crimes. Now, one of the subtopic that we applied for obviously fitted with our idea, digital forensics in the context of criminal investigation. So again, common practices, standards, and protocols for interoperability, rapid retrieval storage. In particular, there we see our research being reinforced that the European directive is still being included in this call. Also, data exploitation and the speedy exchange of information kind of reinforced the research that we had done. So it made us know that we kind of had a viable proposal. And as I said, it's worth knowing that for the effort that you put in as well. This is basically an overview of the INSPECTr project that was awarded in the end. So I've kind of talked about some of the features that are in there. And this is our consortium. So out of the 18 partners we had, we brought in 9 law enforcement agencies, and they bring a lot of important things to the project. And it may not be law enforcement for you, it could be, you know, other end users of your products or whatever. So with law enforcement, we got field experience, end users, testers. In the case of the Gendarmerie and the Ministry of Justice in the Netherlands, we got research and development expertise as well. So we're doing that kind of proactive policing. We have academia, as Michael mentioned, lots with project expertise, but also we have the University of Lausanne was very involved in standardization, which was useful for our data requirements on the project. Our industry partners, we did have a gap, as I said, and we went to Michael and we managed to get a local SME to join in, which is Siren, and John will be joining you if I ever finish up in a moment to talk to you about that. So the final thing I really want to say is just consider your resources whenever you are applying for it. Start at the proposal stage. Make sure that you can commit to everything and make sure that you're aware of all the tasks and deliverables. Here's an example of a work package, and it will just be one more minute, Owen. Here's an example of a work package, and you can see we have 4 main partners involved in this work package, and we have the number of project months underneath it. So it's useful. This is just work package 5, and it's quite detailed. I'm not showing it all to you, but just to show that there are person months assigned to tasks and work packages. A task within that work package might look like that. You've got a leader, we've got ourselves and Siren are involved in this particular task to make investigative widgets. And then you have certain deliverables that you'll be required to submit. So it's useful to be able to go through that yourselves at the proposal stage and make sure that you have the staff and resources to be able to commit to that. If you don't, time flies on the project. There's a lot more work around projects than just the implementation that I just showed you in the previous slide. There's a lot more dissemination, meetings and things. So you need to have staff who can commit to that. If things don't go to plan, there's always a way out. Grant amendments are possible. For example, coronavirus was a massive impact to our project. We got a 6-month extension for it. Now, some partners were forced to leave our project because of that. So we had to do a grant, perform a grant amendment. Actually, we had 2 grant amendments to do, which can be a quite challenging process. So aside from the bad sides, I would encourage you to take the journey. It is worth it. The road will become familiar soon. It's a bit daunting the first time you engage in these projects. You will meet like-minded travelers, both within your own consortium, but also through your dissemination activities. You will meet people for future projects. We're on a number of projects now since the start of INSPECTr, just from people becoming aware of us and so on. And basically, it all starts with an idea. So start thinking now, and we'll get there.
Thanks very much, Ray. That's the longest minute I've ever seen.
Sorry, it's an Irish minute. Oh.
All right, we won't hold up any further. We'll go on to our last speaker, who is John Randall's CEO of Siren and project partner in the INSPECTr Project. So John and his team have developed an investigative intelligence platform that uses a data model to drive discovery of associated data. The product was developed by a team from NUI Galway in collaboration with Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and the research was then developed into a product company in 2016 and has since been successfully deployed in the areas of law enforcement and intelligence, financial crime, cyber threat hunting, and life sciences. So John is specifically going to speak to us today about his experience of working on a European project, what was the value of it to Siren, and what other SMEs should consider when looking at European R&D calls. Over to you, John.
Thanks very much, John. Okay, so what I'm not going to do is tell you how to apply for the project. I think we've covered that. So because I wasn't involved in the detail of that, but what I want to do is just tell you a little bit about Siren, tell you about the problems we solved, and then you'll start to see how we fit well with the INSPECTr project and other projects that we've worked with under Horizon 2020. And I think that's a really important takeaway, is that there's proper alignment with your company, its goals, its product, its purpose and mission with what basically what the European Commission's goals are. And if that's there, then you've got you know, good alignment all the way through from winning the proposal, but more importantly, implementing on that proposal in time. And then we'll just reflect on some of the advantages of that and how it helps us as a company and how, to be honest, it's worth the effort. Okay, so first of all, let me talk about the kind of problems we address. So we're involved in national security and law enforcement, and that's a very broad area. But it very much incorporates what Michael was talking about in terms of cybersecurity. So what we do here is we divide the whole problem space into, we've got users. They can be police forces, law enforcement agencies, intelligence, all the way down to cybersecurity agencies. It could be border control, mass transportation systems. So we're really looking at all users who have a very strong investigative need in what they do. You know, they have problems that are at their core investigative problems. And to feed that investigation, they have data sources. So that could be video, it can be images, it can be cyber data, it could be OSINT, it can be vendor data, it could be public record, it could be log files from firewalls. Whatever it is, you need to be able to put that data together to tell a story of what's actually happening. And then in terms of the types of threat, and again, this goes back to the mission of keeping people safe, is terrorism, organized crime, you know, drug dealing, money laundering, whatever it is in terms of that's keeping the national security and law enforcement people awake, and more importantly now, cybersecurity. How do you actually, you know, put all these data sources together to actually solve some of these very big, important problems for society? So in terms of what we do, our core markets, like Owen said, are really around law enforcement and intelligence. Together are our number one market, over 80% of our business. We also do a lot on cyber threat, particularly for governments rather than the commercial side of it. And we have some clients using us in the fraud area. So in terms of our platform, what it's about is really a search-centric investigative intelligence platform. So what that means is we've put together search with link analysis, with BI, with NLP, with big data streaming. And it's really to make sure a lot of investigators, whether they're highly specialized in the back office or people on the street, have the right access to data. So it can be advanced analysts, it could be basic users. So in terms of where we come from, Siren actually stands for Semantic Information Retrieval Engine. We're based off 10 years of academic research. We've multiple patents pending. We've got some very strategic investors in this market, headquartered in Ireland, and we're growing 3x a year. We've about 50 employees now. We expect to bring that up to 70, 75 by the end of the year. And we have a global network of partners and customers in this area. And like I said earlier, the key thing for us is fusing that data together. So for us, there's an awful lot of data, particularly in the cybersecurity world now, whether it's cyber threat data coming from data vendors, whether it's dark web information, that organizations need to correlate that together with news. It could be social media, it could be public record, it could be device information, it could be company information or location data. Fusing that together to tell a story and really enable people to solve these problems. So if there's one picture that describes what we do, and you'll see how this correlates to our European projects, then is really this picture here, because we're serving that data up to investigative analysts, we're serving it up to more basic search users, we're serving it up to reports and APIs. But you know, if you look at all of the challenges people face in the investigative space today is about the explosion of data, the volume of data, the lack of matching and correlation across that, and the fact that so much crime has gone digital, it's gone cyber, it's gone online, and even we've seen this with the move to digital transformation with the advent of COVID-19. Is so much of our lives are lived online. There is a digital footprint that lives across each of these boxes that often comes into play when there is crime to be detected. And in terms of, I'm not going to go into this in detail, but these are the fundamental building blocks of the product. We join data together, we give people the AI tools to analyze that data and provide analytics on that data. And we provide the visualization tools to do simple search or to do very complex graph analytics on that data, depending on the job, depending on the skill level of the user involved. So in terms of some of the projects we've been involved in, so the INSPECTr Project, as Ray was speaking about, we've got the same list of logos up here, and where this is very highly correlated with our mission is that intelligence sharing across organizations is one of the biggest challenges of investigations. Particularly, you've got cross-border investigations, you've got dissemination that needs to happen to courts, you need multiple parties involved. And you know, there's fantastic work going on in this project around ontologies, and particularly around sharing case information of a forensic level that will allow organizations to work better and better together. And the ontology actually reminds me of work I was involved in the financial services sector 15 years ago, where there was no real standard around derivatives, and you know, there was a lot of confusion in the market and difficulty in measuring risk. So it was one of the impacts of the financial crisis was people wanted to establish ontologies to provide better data management and better uniform understanding of data. And I think that's what we're working on here. That's what it feels like is law enforcement and intelligence is getting to that stage of standardizing on certain ontologies that will help, you know, the whole process work more seamlessly, and we're looking forward to being a part of that. The other project we were part of was, and this is recently concluded, is what was called Project Fandango. So this was a software platform to really help people around fake news, misleading news, disinformation. So again, a huge strategic topic for Europe, a strategic topic globally. And who are we helping there? It's really media news agencies, fact checking, large firms in sensitive sectors, advertisers, educational institutions. So what was great about this project, it was bringing together a lot of very, very different organizations, such as academia, such as industry, such as government organizations, and really helping people put their heads together on this and looking at to see what techniques have you learned. So for example, we worked with a great organization in Greece and an academic institution who was very, very strong on deep fake analysis of images. So as you may have seen, people are starting to generate genuinely fake videos of famous people, of politicians that could have very consequential consequences if we don't detect them. So these are new types of threat. You know, it was great to work with people like that who are at the forefront of that much earlier than anybody else globally that we could find was working on that. So again, a great collaboration and a lot to be learned across this project. Same is true of the inspector, like Ray said, across the policing organizations, across the academic institutions and the other industry partners involved. So in terms of the overall benefits of European projects from a Siren perspective, like I said, collaboration is the #1 thing I would recommend. You know, what tends to happen, particularly the smaller the organization is, the focus can be on the grant, the money, getting, you know, securing your future, securing resources, etc. That's all good. But I think if you see that as the primary purpose, I think the process can be, you know, elongated enough that you're not going to just build your business around these grants. You need to think of them as additional add-ons and additional supports to your business, but you need to have a viable business separate to the grant itself. So that's where I kind of think as collaboration for us is the primary driver, and finding these experts to collaborate on, whether it's people like Ray's team around digital forensics, people on NLP and deep fakes, news analysis, sentiment analysis. You know, these kind of things are really almost problems that are bigger than any individual company. So when you become part of these groupings, it's great to learn from what other people are doing out there. Like I said earlier, I think the funding is complementary to your development plans. I wouldn't look at it as replacement or a primary source of funding, but I think it is something that we've been a fan of in terms of allowing us to have almost a research function earlier than the phase of development where you would typically have such investments. So, for example, we would have been about 25 people when we engaged in our first European project, but we were able to hire a couple of people specifically for these projects, dedicate them to it, and have people working on things that weren't exactly 100% needed for the next release or for the next version of the product itself, or an immediate client requirement. So it allows time for thinking, and I think that's a very good thing as well. And again, the intangibles of the long-term relationships across government, academia, and business, particularly an organization like ourselves entering what is traditionally a hard to enter market, which is law enforcement and national security. It's not something that you do by just advertising through Google, you know, or Facebook. It's something that people need to get to know who you are, trust who you are, know that you're part of the community. And I think that community involvement, whatever your sector, particularly cybersecurity as well, because, you know, trust is a very, very important thing in all of these engagements. And, you know, to be known as part of that community, to participate, to build these long-term relationships, because these projects are not short. So you get to know people over the long term, and they get to know what is your purpose and mission as a company. And I think in that regard, a very, very positive experience. So, Owen, did I give you back some time there?
We saved a minute, so we're just another 19 minutes short.
Okay. Okay.
That's great. No, thanks very much for that, John. I think it's an excellent note to finish on, because we started from the European Commission level. We've looked at the funding calls, the recommendations for getting involved in European projects. We looked at it from a coordinator's point of view, and now we've seen, actually, look, this is it from an SME's perspective, and what's the value of it. And I think, you know, the key point there you're saying is it's not about chasing project funding. There's no point getting involved in European projects if you're just looking at another funding source. It's really the access to a network, access to expertise European-wide, building your network, and the collaboration that's involved in the projects as well. So